Dueling candidate town halls in the books. Trump got ambushed. Biden got a back rub. C-SPAN suspends a liar. And more on the tech war on truth. Welcome, friends, to the Buck Sexton Show. It is Friday. It's a little gloomy here in New York City and much of the East Coast. But the good news is this whole election thing is going to be over soon, so at least we've got that going for us, which is nice. Candidate town halls last night, and we were able to watch them. I saw them both. I waited until this morning. I just couldn't take it in real time. So I got up, and I saw both of these town halls, and I got to tell you, there was nothing surprising or really worthwhile in any of it because it happened exactly as I knew it would. My impression of what these town halls would be like was exactly what ended up happening. You had on the same time slot, but different channels, NBC and ABC, you had, let's start with Biden. I actually watched the Trump one first, which was far more interesting, although it was also aggravating, but we'll start with Biden. Biden was allowed to give a statesman-like fireside chat with voters who were overwhelmingly asking him very gentle questions, mostly Democrats asking him questions, no surprise there, and Stephanopoulos really acting to make sure that, that Biden covered all of his bases, that he gave the full answers that he was hoping for, and 5 minutes for an answer, totally fine. Very few interruptions. It was clear that Stephanopoulos has a tremendous amount of respect for Biden and wanted to draw out the best answers from him that he could. And Biden was a lot of, I've got a plan. There's a study that says I'm going to make 40 million jobs, $10 billion coming from the rich, plus the 70 million jobs I'm going to create, plus, free stuff for everybody, but no one's going to pay more. And, another study said that 80 million jobs, it's just all, what? What is this guy even talking about? He was vice president of the Obama administration, which was economically a disaster. They didn't know what they were doing. They don't understand growth. They don't understand commerce. What they know how to do is use government power to take from some people and give it to others and to make special interests in the left very happy. That's it. They were not good for the middle class. They were not good for working people. We ran the experiment already of Joe Biden and the senior reaches of the federal government, which, let me remind everybody, was a shock the first time around. The fact that Biden got to be VP, it's a little bit like Kamala Harris, somebody who, when he was running for president, was largely rejected by the voters of his own party, and then beyond that was in a position where he all of a sudden is on a ticket, and everyone's supposed to think that he's some great guy doing a fantastic job, right? So, ridiculous. Kamala Harris, same thing. Couldn't get very many votes at all, but sure enough, she is now the vice presidential candidate. So Biden was able to just do exactly what we thought he would do, which is say things that he felt like saying, do things that he felt like doing, and no pushback, really, nothing else. Okay, I know it's almost too boring. The only thing that's worth it is some of the answers he gave, which I'll dissect in a moment. But the format of it was a cordial conversation with Stephanopoulos there, there to, give him a little back rub. When the boxer has to go to his corner and the boxing trainer will sometimes give him a rub on the shoulders, go get him. Go get him, Rock. Get in there. That was kind of Stephanopoulos for Biden. That was really what he was doing. So then you get to what happened with Trump. And this should not be, it's not a surprise, I think, to anybody, but it wasn't actually a town hall, really. It was a debate between Savannah Guthrie, who's taking a break from telling us about the best summer salad recipes on the Today Show, to now be a voice engaging with the President of the United States on politics and clearly from a partisan angle. That's something that we all expected. It's not surprising, but it is, in fact, what happened. It is, in fact, the reality of this exchange from last night. And there were so many moments we could point to where, she's just getting snippy with the president. She was horrible. It was awful, the whole thing. Just watching it was a little bit on the painful side. But here's, for example, this is an exchange. Now, she's supposed to be a moderator. I don't know. It felt like the first half of this town hall was just her and asking the president all the usual left-wing stuff, all the usual questions about, you can't, why won't you denounce white supremacy? Why won't you wear masks? Just the attack questions all the time. They're doing the oppo dirty work of the DNC for them. And on masks, for example, she went after Trump on this Play 7.
Look, you have on the masks, you have two stories. You have a story where they want, a story where they don't want. I am all for it.
I don't get that because it's just all of your public health officials, your administration, they're in unison about this. No. They're all in unison about it. The University of Washington, which is they have a model that your coronavirus task force relies on, says that if everyone wore a mask, you could cut expected deaths in half.
And then 60,000
lives. Well, what does that mean?
Scott Atkins, if you look at Scott, Dr. Scott, he's from great guy, Stanford. He will tell you
he's
that
not an infectious disease expert.
No, I don't know. Look, he's an expert. He's one of the great experts of the world.
But I don't get it because you have so much power and influence as president. You could go to you could require it at your rallies, and you could say, everyone put on a mask right now. And the University of Washington says you would save lives.
University of Washington, and you have other places say different things. You have a lot of, hey, Dr. Fauci said don't wear a mask, right?
At first, but then everybody agreed.
So notice that she says something that's not true, and he then corrects her, right? She says, everyone says, and he's like, well, no, I have an MD who is one of my advisors now who does not agree with this. They also just dismiss out of hand the Great Barrington Declaration, which has people who, look, quite honestly, just have more impressive credentials than Dr. Fauci. Went to better medical schools, have more training in epidemiology, have spent longer periods of time doing research specifically on how viruses transmit. Now, I know you'd say Fauci was at the CDC. He's a bureaucrat, folks. He's a bureaucrat. It's like somebody who's at the CIA as director, something that I understand very well. The CIA director is not the smartest CIA man in the building at all. That's not how it works. He's just the guy that gets put in the position to watch everybody else and, give speeches and be a manager. He's a bureaucrat. But nonetheless, Fauci here is a guy that we all have to listen to, even though he's clearly a Democrat. He's clearly a Democrat. And she says something that's not true, and then she gets in this mass debate with the president. I thought this was supposed to be a town hall. I thought everybody was going to be able to approach the president, just the average folks be able to approach the president and ask their questions. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. And it's strange to me. I don't know why. I will say this. Trump did a very good job. He was very lucid. He was good. I mean, he kicked her butt. It was a debate, and that was what the Trump campaign said afterwards. She kept coming at Trump on all these different issues, and he shot it down. And he made, honestly, much more compelling case for himself on a whole range of issues than he was even able in the first debate, when, as we know now, I mean, the president's health, the president's, state of mind may have been somewhat affected. So now we have this obvious playing out of NBC, ABC. They're attacking Trump. Why not a Fox town hall? Why not the Joe Rogan town hall or Joe Rogan interview? Why not go on a platform where I know they'd say NBC reaches so many people and all this stuff. We're in the internet age now, and unless the major internet companies shut something down, it can pretty much get wherever it has to get. So just got to tell you, I thought last night was unsurprising. But now let me dig into the specifics. Right? Trump did a good job. Guthrie was horrible. Stephanopoulos gave Biden a back rub. That was all expected. That is what happened. Let's look at the specific issues. We're a couple of weeks out from a presidential election. We should know what these two men actually believe, Biden and Trump. So let's dig into that a bit, because there is much more there. I got a crash course recently in home title theft. You better pray this crime never happens to you, because it could wipe you out financially. It goes after your most valuable asset, which is your home. Here's what happens. The legal titles to all of our homes are online. They're in the cloud. They're stored in servers. The bad guys, cyber thieves, they hack your home's title, and then they use a quitclaim deed to kick you off, put themselves on, and start taking out loans against your home. You often won't find out about this until the bills arrive in the mail or maybe even a foreclosure notice. You got to take action today. The usual identity theft services do not protect you. You have to create a virtual barrier around your home's title with Home Title Lock. Home Title Lock protects you and makes sure the bad guys can't just use your home's title to get a whole bunch of money that they're stealing from you. Go to HomeTitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim. Then use code RADIO for 30 free days of protection. Again, all you have to do is go to HomeTitleLock.com, use that code RADIO, promo code RADIO, for 30 free days of protection.
Were asked point blank to denounce white supremacy. In the moment, you didn't. You asked me follow-up questions. Who specifically? A couple of days later, on a different show, you denounced white supremacy.
No,
my question to you is,
you've done this to
why
me and
does
everybody.
It seem like
I denounced white supremacy, okay?
You did
I've
2 days
denounced
later.
white supremacy for years, but you always do it. You always start off with a question. You didn't ask Joe Biden whether or not he denounces Antifa. I watched him on the same basic show with Lester Holt, and he was asking questions like Biden was a child.
Well, so this is a little bit of a dodge.
Are you listening? I denounce white supremacy.
Okay.
What's your next question?
Do you feel, it feels sometimes you're hesitant to do so, like you wait a beat.
Here we go again. Every time, in fact, when people came, I'm sure they'll ask you the white supremacy question. I denounce white supremacy.
Okay.
And frankly, you want to know something? I denounce Antifa, and I denounce these people on the left that are burning down our cities that are run by Democrats.
And notice the president, when he's able to actually get out what he's trying to say, because at least it wasn't a 2-on-1 as the Biden-Chris Wallace debate was, he makes very clear the following. He has denounced white supremacy in the past. He's denouncing white supremacy now. It's offensive that they keep asking him this question, and it's clear they're doing so for partisan reasons. Oh, and they won't even accept what he says when he says it, so what's really the point of asking him? Why are they doing this? They don't care what the answer is. They do not care that he says, I denounce white supremacy. They just want to keep asking. This is the classic, when did you stop beating your wife question? And she even lets it slip a little bit here by saying, you seem a little hesitant sometimes. Oh, so he doesn't denounce it fast enough now. This is the standard. I just want to know, does he have to denounce it even more loudly? Is this like that scene in the very entertaining 90s movie Jerry Maguire where Tom Cruise has to say, show me the money, screaming into the phone? Does Trump have to say, I denounce white supremacy as loud as possible? And if he doesn't, he's not denouncing it enough. Oh, I didn't hear it. It's a little bit like when you go to a live event and they say, this side, are you happy to be here in New York? And it's like, I can't hear you. Yeah, well, what does he have to do? What does he have to do to get them to finally stop asking this dumbass question? This is a question that stupid people who think they're smart ask the president of the United States. There's no reason to believe it. It's all based in a lie. This whole continuing, white supremacy thing. We know the game that they play. Every 4 years, they go, well, David Duke, the KKK guy, endorses this or that candidate. Yeah, and the Communist Party of America endorses the Democrat every year. No one cares. These people are losers. Although actually maybe the Democrats do care about the Communist Party because increasingly they're a bunch of commies too. But no one cares what the KKK says about a presidential election, as in they have no support. They are completely reviled throughout society. They are condemned. They are not welcome in the Republican Party in any way, shape, or form. And how many times do we have to say this? How many times do we have to do this? But see, they win merely with the accusation. It's just fighting dirty. Here I am having to cite this from last night. But this really, for me, was the breaking point also with Chris Wallace. This was the breaking point where Chris Wallace all of a sudden was asking this question, and in the first debate, and I just realized, oh my gosh, here we go. It's a litmus test. If you think that President Trump is guy who grew up in Queens in New York City, has a lifelong history of being a businessman with there's no bigotry. They haven't found some tape where he's making horrible statements about some race or anything else or some ethnicity, whatever. And they keep asking about being a white supremacist. This is unbelievable, friends. But that's what they do. And that was what they did last night. But it was worthwhile for us to see this because while Savannah Guthrie is effectively calling the president of the United States a racist to his face and doing so in this I'm a really serious NBC News journalist, and I'm I'm sorry, sir, I'm asking you the real tough question. And everyone, yeah, go get him. All the Democrats, all the libs. No deference or respect. And the president clearly found her annoying and overly aggressive, and he was right. Do you think find me a tape where she's ever approached any Democrat in any office like that? That's what I want to know. Find me one. And I'll say, oh, I guess I was wrong. Maybe she's a real journo. The whole thing is such a fraud, isn't it? Asking the president if he's a white supremacist. What you really have to remember about this is their only evidence for this is a lie. So they make an allegation based on a lie, and they just continue to pretend that we don't know that he did not say that there were good people on both sides in Charlottesville. He didn't say that. It's a lie to say that, but they keep going with this. There's a transcript. It's not even just like, oh, he said something and they could interpret it one way or the other. He said something and then clarified because it was open-ended in a sense what he said if you just take the sentence out of context. But then he clarified, just to be very clear, I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis who should be totally condemned. I'm just talking about people that are debating both sides of whether statues should just be torn down or how that process should go, which is still true to this day. Otherwise, I guess we have to, decapitate the Columbus statue that's not far from where I'm doing this show in Columbus Circle in New York City. So Guthrie was terrible on that issue. She was terrible on asking about white supremacy, asking him, or really just debating him and hectoring him on masks. And I'm just going to say this now. There are a couple of people in the Kamala campaign who have gotten COVID. They're going to do everything they can to make sure that this does not, right before the election, this does not turn into, and it doesn't even have to be Kamala or Joe Biden, but if a bunch of Democrats around them all get this, when they're walking around with very showy masks on, right? It's not just a mask sometimes. They're masked up all the time, social distancing all the time, for the cameras at least. We all know, right, that people, I've seen this. People, even in my building in New York, who are all about wearing masks all the time. You know what the first thing they do when they get in the elevator, they think they're alone is? They rip that mask off. Now they're just, spreading virus freely in the air in the elevator. Oh, and then when the elevator's done, you know what they do? They put the mask back on. Oh, I'm a good person. See, look at me. I'm voting for Biden. Right. But they understand that they've now infected that elevator bank. And for anyone else who goes in there, they'll be exposed to the virus. And that's even if you believe that the mask does anything to prevent this. And is it this week? Is it my mask protects me, your mask protects you? Or is it my mask protects you, your mask protects me? Which one is it this week? Because it'll probably change next week. I made a joke last week on Twitter about how, not 6, 7, 7. I made a joke about masks, not 1, 2. Why not 3? Joe Biden last night at the town hall made a point of saying that he wears now an N95 and a surgical mask. Now he's got to up the ante a little bit. Now he's got to show how serious he is about this, what a good person he is. He does both. To this, I just want to say, oh, yeah, Joe Biden? What about 3 masks, my man? That's what I rock these days. I don't really, but maybe I will, just so I can walk around telling everybody when I'm really trying to show how much I take the virus seriously, I go 3, I triple mask and wear goggles. Why not a PAPR hood? Those actual respirator hoods. Why not one of those? Go all in. It's got to take it seriously. Biden's already wearing 2 masks. How long before the spread of this virus goes up again in this country before they're telling us you really need to wear 2 masks? Remember, I've told you this. There will be a push for double masking, a double mask mandate. That's going to come up too. What's the one thing you know, whether you watched that town hall last night or not? What's the one thing that you know Joe Biden was not asked about? I want you to think about it for. Some of you already have the answer. What's the one thing you know? Oh, that's right. Hunter Biden. You know, the guy that there's now even more information was selling access, straight up selling access to his dad, trying to steer U.S. foreign policy to line his own pockets. The guy's a total ne'er-do-well, a screw-up, and now we all see it. And the media has been covering for him all along, as we also know, including now big tech with Twitter and Facebook, in what was nothing other than a suppression campaign that's still going on to try to protect Biden the final weeks. Look, the Democrats aren't used to an October surprise. They're expecting to be able to just cruise on into Election Day without any last-minute bumps. Well, they have one now. But that's right. He wasn't asked about this at all. The president has already pointed out how frustrating this is for him. And it's an outrage. We're going to talk more about the Hunter Biden thing in a little bit. There's even more information out there about this one. But let's discuss what Biden was asked about and what he did say. And remember, he had plenty of time. I mean, Stephanopoulos, I'm so glad he was there to make sure that Biden had some nice tea with lemon in it if he needed it. You know, maybe a warm washcloth, some fuzzy slippers. You know, George Stephanopoulos really holding Biden's feet to the fire to keep them warm and so that he could find pressure points and make sure that Biden was really relaxed, you know, give him a little foot rub. That's what he got, which is great. I mean, being a Democrat, huge advantage. We know that. Being a Republican, Trump had Savannah Guthrie, like, all in his face, like, asking, like, why don't you wear masks? And, like, I don't care. There are other people here asking questions. Like, I'm really upset. Right. Good stuff. That was great. Really, really exceptional from NBC. But NBC is a joke. It's a joke of a place. Remember, NBC is the same place that has MSNBC, which gave Joy Reid a promotion after lying about hacking and an FBI investigation of the hacking, all based upon her writing homophobic stuff on her blog 10 years ago. All she had to do was say, wow, I was really wrong. I apologize. I'm moving. And they would have forgiven her, would have been fine. But nope. Don't even want to do that. Don't want to take responsibility. Get away with it. Get promoted. Not even just get away with it. That's NBC. That's the NBC news division. I always remember MSNBC, NBC, tons of crossover, working together all the time, hand in glove. The same thing, effectively. Same thing. You know, so, you know, Fox News, Fox Business, a lot of people back and forth. Yeah, different shows, different hosts, but same parent company, a lot of stuff going on there. Good things at Fox and Fox Business, but not good things at NBC. So we have so many fun areas of discussion here with Joe Biden from last night. So we should all make sure we understand exactly who the American people will be getting if this guy becomes president, who's a remarkable case study in the rise of mediocrity that can occur as long as you are shameless. If you are shameless and have endurance, you can rise in American politics. It's true. Biden's been around for a long time, and nobody thought this guy was even a little bit impressive until 5 minutes ago when all of a sudden he was their best chance, they thought, to actually win a national election. But let's get into his answers to these things. Let's get into this. We have the dumbest thing that Joe Biden said in the entire debate last night. What was the single most outrageous, idiotic? Now, I'm not saying that I have the answer necessarily. I think you could make a case that there are a few different contenders, any one of which could be the answer. But this is very high on the list for me. This one, I feel like this outranks all the others. Here's what he said. We're talking about police reform and defunding cops. Remember when the Democrats were all chanting about defunding cops a few months ago? And some of us, like me, were running around saying, that's so stupid that it could not be taken seriously by a serious person. It's a moronic talking point. It's not possible that somebody who says this and believes it is intelligent on issues of law enforcement. Notice how they've abandoned that. Right. In the moment, in the frenzy, for the purposes of mobilizing the base and getting clicks and attention on TV, left-wing activists and Democrats were all of a sudden saying, no, we believe in this. We believe in this. Right. Think there's any accountability for that? You think the people of Minneapolis who actually had a police station burned down in their city, you think anyone's apologized to them or feels badly about what's happened in their neighborhoods with the rise in crime, but also just the rise in a sense of hopelessness and helplessness because of the defund the police mantra? No, of course not. They don't care. They just move right past it. After they've just left destruction and mayhem in their wake, Democrats, the left, national news media, they find some other target. They move on to something else. Here is Joe Biden explaining his police policy going forward. Play clip 2.
We can do this. You can ban chokeholds. But beyond that, you have to teach people how to de-escalate circumstances. De-escalate. So instead of anybody coming at you, and the first thing you do is shoot to kill, you shoot them in the leg. There's ways you have to do more background checks in terms of whether or not the person coming in passes certain psychological test. And the last thing I'll say, and I'm sorry because it was really, I think, really, really important, is you have to be in a position where you are able to identify the things that have to change. And one of the things that has to change is so many cops get called into circumstances where somebody is mentally off, like what happened not long ago with that guy with the knife. That's why we have to provide within police departments psychologists and social workers to go out with the cops on those calls, some of those 911 calls, to de-escalate the circumstance, to deal with talking them down. But we can't. Cops are kind of like school teachers.
No, cops are not like school teachers, actually. It's not true. It's not their job. It's not their training. They're not school teachers. And we ask a lot, just based on circumstance, unfortunately, of our cops far beyond their job description. They are family counselor. They are peacemaker. They are, they're doing a lot of things, intervening for a lot of people. Police become just involved in pretty mundane family disputes because there's no good dispute resolution mechanism inside that family unit. This just happens in places. It's not really what cops are supposed to do, but they step in, they do the job. I just think this is, so there's so much dumb there. Don't worry, I'm going to get to the shoot them in the leg thing in a second. Because he said that. Get the cops and don't shoot to kill, shoot them in the leg. He doesn't know anything. He knows absolutely nothing. This is so dumb that a national politician saying this out loud, I mean, this is as dumb as anything they accuse Trump of having said, but this is actually not a joke, right? They'll pretend that when Trump says something and he's kidding, it's real, right? And now they're saying, then they've got Joe Biden coming forward, and here we are with him saying, shoot someone in the leg. They don't shoot to kill. Police shoot to stop the threat. And they will shoot for center mass if they have to use lethal force. And that's the way it's going to be because they have made a decision to stop the threat. That is how they are trained. Shoot in the leg. Has he ever seen a video of when cops have to shoot? Shoot in the leg. Really easy to say things like that. First of all, you could get hit in your femoral artery, femoral rather, and die. And that can happen too. So it's not like shoot in the leg is, and what is he, shoot somebody in the shin? Is that the plan? Because people can keep coming at you. And there's video now that's circulating. I'm sure many of you have seen it where a guy got shot multiple times, has a knife, coming at cops, will not stop, falls to the ground after being shot numerous times, gets up, tackles another officer, tries to pull his firearm off him to use against him. And fortunately, his partner is able to finally stop the threat. That's the only way that they're trained. That's the way it has to be done. I was trained to shoot to stop the threat, too, when I was in the CIA. This is just the way that it's done. You're not shooting because you want to hurt somebody or because you're angry or you're not trying to hit them in the leg or the head. You are going center mass, stop the threat. That's all that, because in a moment of panic and fear that you will feel if you have to defend yourself with lethal force, your small motor skills are much less acute, much less refined. The likelihood of being able to hit somebody if you shoot them in the leg, it's much more likely you will miss, and now you will be attacked and perhaps die yourself. It's so dumb that it's amazing that somebody who thinks he should be president would say it out loud. But that is what he offers up for you. That is what he says. And then this other thing, this Democrat fantasy that the way we could deal with all this is by sending out psychologists, as though we're going to have some guy in a 3-piece suit named Sigmund who's like, so tell me about your mother. It's not going to work. It's not going to make people calm down when they're a lethal threat to law enforcement or when they're having a breakdown. Do you know who people who work in the mental health field have to call when someone's an EDP and they cannot be reasoned with? They call the cops. This is what happens in psych wards. This is what happens in places. There's a reason there are orderlies who are just large, essentially like bouncers, to deal with people in psychiatric wards if they become a danger to themselves or to others. They have to be physically restrained. There's a reason why there are restraints in psychiatric wards too. But Biden doesn't. It's not even clear that he doesn't know this so much as he doesn't know and he doesn't care. It doesn't matter. Just spew out some nonsense. Stephanopoulos is like, oh, yeah, that's great. And it sounds like he cares more about people. But I can assure you this, Joe Biden has had Secret Service protection now for a very long time. If somebody was hiding out in the bushes and he didn't have armed security everywhere, he would want the cops showing up doing whatever they had to do as fast as possible, and he wouldn't have any questions about it. And this is the classic liberal mentality on display. They want to judge other people who want to survive a violent encounter. They want to have other people who use their Second Amendment rights to defend themselves against the mob charged with murder. Right? They want that, but they themselves, no. I mean, whatever force is necessary to protect them, that's totally fine. But yes, that's right. Biden thinks, yeah, we could train cops to, shoot in the leg. No, we can't. We don't do that. You do not train people to shoot people in the legs. Because if they have to shoot, it's because there's an imminent threat to life, and you're not going to stop that by aiming for someone's leg.
And once we get it, if it's safe, if it's effective, will you mandate its use?
The answer is depending on how clear. There's vaccines, they say, have a very positive impact, and they're going to affect positively 85% of the American public. Or there's others say this vaccine is really the key. This is the golden key. It depends on the state of the nature of the vaccine, when it comes out, and how it's being distributed. That would depend on. But I would think that we should be talking about, depending on the continuation of the spread of the virus, we should be thinking about making it mandatory.
How could you enforce that?
Well, you couldn't. That's the problem. Just like you can't enforce measles. You can't come to school unless you have a measles shot. You can't. But you can't say everyone has to do this. But you would, just like you can't mandate a mask. But you can say you can go to every governor and get them all in a room, all 50 of them as president, and say, ask people to wear the mask.
Was that English? I mean, really, what was he saying there? You can't, but measles, you can't go to school if you get the measles, but you can't mandate a vaccine. But then he says there are vaccine mandates for school. And then he says you can't mandate a mask, but then there's going to be governors who ask. And I don't care if they're asking, they're using the law. They're using the law here, folks. Here's what's really going on. Yes, Biden will mandate a vaccine if that's what the Democrat Party decides. If that's what the left wants, there'll be a vaccine mandate. They will mandate it for schools. Oh, yes, it'll happen. Get ready for it. For a virus that they have politically invested in the belief that it is very dangerous to children when it is not. It is not dangerous to children. It is not. But they will still say that it is. Now, when I say it's not, yes, I think there's 20 kids who have died, they believe, from COVID. I would wonder if it's with COVID or from COVID, right? But that's far fewer than die every single year from the flu. And people do not keep their kids out of school for most of the school year because it's flu season. So this is all quite clear. This is all quite obvious. But doesn't matter. Yes, they will mandate a vaccine for people if that's what the left decides that needs to be done. Just like he says there, you can't mandate masks. This is a big part of the problem in our mask debate as a country. The mask debate. I know, we played that clip for you a while ago. We got to have mask debate on this show a lot of time. It's just the way it is. But a big problem with it is that there's no separation in people's minds between someone's choice to take that precaution that they want to take and a government mandate about masks. It's not the same thing. When the government says you must do this thing, it means they're using the threat of force to make you do something, right? So if they say mask up or you're fined, that's also the same thing as saying mask up or we will take money from you, we'll take property from you. And if you refuse, we will arrest you, we will take away your freedom. That's what it means. That seems quite a bit extreme, doesn't it? There's a difference between that and, hey, guys, we think it would be good if people wore masks, but we understand some of you will have already recovered from the disease. Some of you, don't think that it's necessary under certain circumstances. We're going to leave it the same way we do with all other health matters like this. When it comes to respiratory diseases that are out there, like the flu, we're going to leave it to individual decision-making as much as possible, as much as is feasible. They've completely abandoned that. They've decided that you're no longer able to have those freedoms. And based on what? Now they act like you're an idiot if you don't think that the masks are so great, even though Fauci and the rest of the crew didn't want you to wear them at the beginning. Remember this, they're saying their line now is we didn't know as much now as we knew then. When Fauci was saying don't wear masks, when people were saying don't wear masks, the belief was actually that this virus was, because remember, they said don't wear them because we don't want you to take them from frontline healthcare workers. The initial estimates were that this virus was 1 to 3% fatality rate. That's where we got that 2 million number in the United States, right? 2 to 3 million dead. So we thought it was far more lethal then than we actually know it is now. And with that belief in much greater lethality, they have said that they were saying, don't wear masks. Now it's much less lethal, and they say, if you don't wear masks, you're killing people. And we're supposed to just accept this. Not me.